Some actors chase fame, others chase awards, and then there's Sam Rockwell who's just chasing a good time. He danced his way through Iron Man 2, played ping pong with himself in Moon, and stole scenes in everything from Galaxy Quest to Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. His career makes no real sense, bouncing from animated films to video games to movies barely anyone saw, but that unpredictability is part of the charm. Whether he's the lead or just somewhere in the background, there's always one thing in common: you wish he had more screen time. But Rockwell didn't get here by accident. It took years of bouncing between smaller parts and unknown films. Eventually, he got his shot at becoming a leading man, a few big roles, a bit of buzz, even a GQ cover, but it never quite worked out. So instead of forcing it, he leaned into the roles that let him be offbeat, weird, or unpredictable. The ones that don't usually win awards until they do. This is the story of an actor who just wants to have fun, not by chasing the spotlight, but by dancing just outside of it. This is Sam Rockwell. Rockwell may seem laid back about his career. He even said he's never worried if a movie bombs because if it's good, it'll find its audience, and he's got the cult classics to prove it. But that attitude doesn't extend to how he approaches his roles. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Whether he's the lead or off to the side, he puts in the work, especially when he's supporting. Those were the roles where he could steal a scene and make it his own. You can say he's one of the most effective scene stealers of his generation, reminding me of Christopher Walken in that regard. Born in Daly City, California in 1968, Rockwell had a rocky childhood. His parents divorced when he was 5, and his mother couldn't handle raising a child, so he was raised by his father in San Francisco. They struggled financially until his dad remarried, and Rockwell often got bullied for being artsy and awkward. He discovered acting at the age of 10 when he appeared in a play with his mom, but by high school, he'd lost interest. He barely graduated, saying himself he just wanted to hang out and meet girls. But that spark came back after transferring schools and landing a small role in an indie film. After graduating, he moved to New York and enrolled in the William Esper Studios' 2-year acting program, where he studied the Meisner technique, a system that helped him stop overthinking and start reacting instinctively as the character. He supported himself with odd jobs during these times, like delivering burritos by bike and even working for a private investigator. But once the roles started coming his way, he went all in. His film debut came in 1989's Clown House, a low-budget horror movie that was later overshadowed by controversy after the director essayed the 12-year-old lead. He also popped up briefly in the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as the head thug, his first real studio film. But the next 6 years were filled with tiny roles in smaller movies. He did indie films like In the Soup and The Search for One-Eyed Jimmy, while building a stage experience as a founding member of the Labyrinth Theater Company, working alongside other up-and-comers like Mark Ruffalo, Ethan Hawke, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Towards the back half of the 90s, he finally started landing bigger roles. 3 in particular stood out: Box of Moonlight in 1996, Lawn Dogs in 1997, and Safe Men in 1998. In one, he played a wild drifter who befriends a stressed-out businessman. In another, a landscaper living on the outskirts of a wealthy community. In the third, a lounge singer mistaken for a safecracker by the mob. 2 of the characters were offbeat and weirdly likable. One was tragic, but all 3 showed critics what he could do, with Lawn Dogs even winning him a few festival awards.
And they're whacking me with their sticks until finally I was able to punch one of them and I busted his nose and his buddy.
These weren't hits, but they were the first signs that Rockwell could do more than just show up. He could hold your attention. But then came 1999, the year that changed everything. But first, Rockwell never chased attention. He valued his privacy, and if you're anything like me, you know how important that is too. That's where today's sponsor comes in. On top of doing YouTube, I also work a full-time job in a position where people and companies want to sell you all sorts of stuff. My information was on a bunch of data brokerage sites. This included my parents' home phone number from when I used to live there. I constantly got spam and sales calls from companies trying to sell me their products and services. It's annoying and unnerving because these callers don't really stop after you say no or ignore them. And the worst part is that they're legally required to remove your info if you ask, but they make the process confusing and difficult on purpose. And that's why I recommend today's sponsor, Aura, to my family and friends. Aura takes care of the hard part, automatically removing your info from these sites and keeping it off. But Aura is so much more than that. They're an all-in-one digital security platform. You might already have a digital security tool, but not having Aura is like locking your front door but leaving the back door open. They give you alerts if your personal info is found on the dark web, 24/7 monitoring to help keep your identity secure, a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and much more. I value my privacy and I value yours, so go to aura.com/filmstack to start your 14-day free trial, also linked in the description. In those 2 weeks, you'll discover where your data is exposed and sold. Let aura do the hard work of keeping you safe so you can focus on what matters most. Trust me, it will give you peace of mind. Thank you, Aura, for sponsoring this video. Okay, back to 1999. He started small, playing Francis Flute in A Midsummer Night's Dream. He was one of the amateur actors in a play within the play, but Rockwell made it count. In a glowing New York Times review, the critic wrote, "Rockwell moves the skeptical and bemused audience to tears, proving that he alone among the band of actors has any real talent for the craft." Not bad for a role that barely takes up any screen time. In The Green Mile, he played Wild Bill, a violent, unpredictable inmate on death row.
My bags are packed! I'm ready to go! Where are we going? Let's go!
Rockwell threw himself into it, watching all kinds of films to nail the accent and energy, even asking the makeup department to paint zits all over his body to make him even more disgusting. The role was small, but it was unforgettable, and in a massive hit like The Green Mile, it gave him more visibility than anything he'd done before. And then came Galaxy Quest. The film follows washed-up TV actors from a sci-fi show who are mistaken for real heroes by actual aliens. Rockwell played Guy Fleegman, a former extra who's convinced he's going to die at any moment. It's a ridiculous part in a ridiculous movie, and it's perfect. And the thing is, he almost turned it down, thinking it was too silly, but Kevin Spacey talked him into it, reminding him that plenty of dramatic actors got their start in comedy. So Rockwell committed. He improvised lines, drank loads of coffee to stay jittery, and gave a performance that's still quoted today.
Hey, don't open that! It's an alien planet! Is there air? You don't know!
The movie wasn't a box office hit at first, but it became a cult classic, and Rockwell later said he'd love to do a sequel or limited series, definitely not regretting taking the part. More importantly, 1999 showed everyone, including himself, what kind of actor he really was. Not the classic leading man, but something better. The wild card, the guy who pops in, does something unforgettable, and leaves you wanting more. After years of weird supporting roles in low-budget indies, the 2000s looked like they might finally be Sam Rockwell's breakout decade. And on paper, that seemed possible. He kicked things off in the year 2000 with Charlie's Angels, playing Eric Knox, a charming tech mogul who's kidnapped. It wasn't a huge role, but it was flashy and fun, and the first of many times Rockwell danced his way into a scene. The movie was a hit, and suddenly Rockwell was on Hollywood's radar. Then came 2002, the year that was supposed to change everything. He starred in two very different films. First, Welcome to Collinwood, a quirky heist comedy directed by the Russo brothers before they took over the MCU. Rockwell played a not-so-bright boxer caught up in a botched robbery, but it was Confessions of a Dangerous Mind that really made people notice him. It was George Clooney's directorial debut, based on the maybe true, maybe not memoir of game show host Chuck Barris, who claimed he was a CIA assassin. Rockwell beat out names like Robert Downey Jr. and Ben Stiller for the part, with Clooney fighting studio execs to get him in the film. Not just because he looked like Barris, but because he believed famous people shouldn't play other famous people. The studio didn't want an unknown actor carrying a $30 million movie, so they surrounded him with stars like Julia Roberts and Drew Barrymore. Rockwell went all in. He spent months hanging out with the real Barris, filming him, studying his mannerisms, and even recording him reading the entire script so he could match his delivery. The result was a bold and unpredictable performance, full of charm and paranoia that critics called spot on.
A cellophane suit. Can people clearly see your nuts? I don't know.
It won him the Silver Bear for Best Actor at the Berlin Film Festival. It looked like everything was finally lining up, the breakout moment he'd been building towards, but the film underperformed at the box office and the momentum never fully carried over. He followed it with Ridley Scott's Matchstick Men, playing a con man alongside Nicolas Cage. Again, the reviews were strong, and again, it didn't quite land commercially. The final nail might have been The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in 2005, a long-awaited adaptation of the beloved sci-fi comedy book. Rockwell played Zaphod Beeblebrox, the president of the galaxy. He beat out actors like Jim Carrey and Will Ferrell for the part, with director Garth Jennings casting him immediately after his audition. The role was big, goofy, and unhinged, described as a blend of Elvis and George W. Bush. But the film underperformed, and just like that, Rockwell's shot at being a studio lead kind of vanished. From there, he shifted into weirder, darker territory for a bit. In 2008's Choke, based on the Chuck Palahniuk novel, he played a sex addict and scam artist. Roger Ebert said Rockwell had become the latter-day version of Christopher Walken. Not all the time, but when you need him, he's your go-to guy for weirdness. Around the same time, he starred in Snow Angels as a broken father dealing with grief and addiction, one of his rawest performances, where he hit a tree so hard during a scene that he ended up in the hospital. At this point, Rockwell wasn't a household name, but within the industry, he was quietly becoming the guy you called when you needed something strange, risky, or just different. He still kept working in bigger films, even if the roles were smaller. He voiced the lead guinea pig in G-Force and appeared as Charlie Ford in the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, holding his own in a stacked cast. Brad Pitt even had to show up at Rockwell's apartment to convince him to take the role. He didn't want to make the movie without him. By the end of the decade, it became clear Rockwell wasn't a traditional leading man. He could carry the film, but the ones that let him try never took off. The ones where he just popped in, did something wild and left a mark, those stuck around. And then came Moon, directed by Duncan Jones, David Bowie's son. The entire movie was written specifically for Rockwell because of how much Jones wanted to work with him. It's a quiet sci-fi film where Rockwell plays Sam Bell, a man stationed alone on a lunar base, until he discovers another Sam Bell. Rockwell plays both versions of the character, bouncing off himself in scenes, shifting personalities, even playing ping pong with himself.
You really think they give a shit about us? They're laughing all the way to the bank.
Tess would know. She would have told me.
When do you get off?
Critics called it a masterclass in solo acting, full of restraint and control. The film was a cult hit, and there was even an Oscar campaign to get him a nomination, but that didn't happen. Still, Moon only further proved Rockwell can carry a film, but Hollywood didn't seem interested in turning him into a star. And maybe that was okay, because he didn't need to lead. He just needed the kinds of roles that let him disappear or catch you off guard. The ones where he wasn't the face on the poster, but was the reason you remembered the movie, a film's secret weapon. The 2010s were the decade where Sam Rockwell fully leaned into what he did best, showing up, stealing scenes, and leaving you wondering why he wasn't in more of the film. He wasn't chasing the spotlight anymore. He was the secret sauce, the guy who made everything around him more interesting. He kicked things off with Iron Man 2 playing Justin Hammer, a sleazy rival weapons manufacturer to Tony Stark. Rockwell had actually been considered for Tony in the first film, but never heard back. For the sequel, he told them he wanted to play a villain, so they created 2 villain roles just to give him one. With the limited screen time he had, he made the most of every second. His now iconic dance during the introduction was completely improvised. He was just told to go dance, and he took it from there. He followed that with Cowboys and Aliens, playing a saloon owner, a role that was expanded just because he wanted it. The movie bombed, but it showed just how much trust people in the industry had in him. You give Sam Rockwell a role and he's going to find something fun to do with it. Then came Seven Psychopaths. Martin McDonagh's chaotic crime film gave Rockwell the kind of offbeat role he was made for. An unhinged actor who kidnaps dogs to collect the reward money. It's a stacked cast, but Rockwell rises above it, delivering a loud, erratic, hilarious performance. And even through all the absurdity, he still manages to give the film heart. It's one of his most memorable performances, and this film luckily did well. But then came the way back, where he swapped the crazy energy for warmth. He played Owen, the laid-back, kind-hearted manager of a water park who becomes an unexpected mentor to a shy teenage boy. It's one of Rockwell's most grounded roles. Still funny, still quick, but with real heart underneath. He improvised a lot on set, including a herpes joke on the loudspeaker that got him in trouble with the park's real owners. But the charm was undeniable. The movie became a sleeper hit, and for the first time in years, people started asking, why isn't Sam Rockwell in more movies like this? And yet, he didn't change course. He kept working in all kinds of films, big and small. Some worked, some didn't. He took on some bigger roles in movies like A Single Shot, Better Living Through Chemistry, and Laggies. And in 2015, he had a streak of lead roles like Don Verdeen, Mr. Right, and the Poltergeist remake, but none of them really landed. The reviews were rough, and the box office numbers were worse for 2 of them. But even when the movies didn't work, Rockwell always showed up. Critics called him the highlight of Poltergeist, saying he's doing his best with a pretty lifeless script. And you can just tell he was having a blast in Mr. Right. He was just getting unlucky with the lead roles this entire decade, like in 2010's Conviction, where he gave one of his most restrained and emotional performances. And once again, the film didn't do well commercially. It was becoming a pattern. When he led, it was a hit or a miss, but on the sidelines, he shined. He continued exploring interesting parts outside of film. He did theater, including a couple of Broadway runs. He voiced Vic Reynolds in F is for Family for 6 years and even lent his voice to Dishonored 2. By now, everyone in the industry knew what he was capable of. Directors trusted him, actors loved working with him, and critics almost always singled him out. And then, after all those years of great performances in movies that came and went, he finally got one that instantly stuck. 2017's Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri was a perfect match for Rockwell. His role was written specifically for him by Martin McDonagh, and the film gave him more screen time than usual, but still not the lead. He played Officer Jason Dixon, a racist, immature cop who slowly and painfully starts to grow into something resembling a person. Rockwell went all in on the preparation, working with dialect coaches, Skyping with Missouri police officers, and getting a full line read from a real Missouri chief of police so he could mimic his speech patterns. He even added some of the officers' slang to the script. The result was a messy, complex, and unforgettable character, one that isn't redeemed but is understood by the end of the film. It's the kind of performance that forces you to look at someone you'd rather write off.
No, I don't want you to go down and talk to him. Somebody send their goddamn mother down to talk to goddamn police.
And this time, he didn't go unnoticed. After years of playing parts that were too small or in films not many people saw, Rockwell won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. The movie was a critical and box office hit, and the performance instantly became one of his favorites. Even Rockwell was surprised, saying, "A lot of success I've had has been in movies that bombed but had an afterlife. Three Billboards was an anomaly. It was the payoff to everything he'd built. All the weird roles, all the times he showed up and quietly stole the show. He finally got recognized and he didn't have to change a thing. He just leaned into what he'd been doing best all along." Winning the Oscar didn't change Sam Rockwell. If anything, it gave him more freedom to keep doing what he already loved, taking risks and having fun. Right after Three Billboards, he jumped into playing George W. Bush in Adam McKay's Vice, and as always, he went all in. He listened to Bush's interviews on repeat and studied his mouth movements so obsessively that his mouth muscles were twitching a lot. The performance was strange and spot on, a bit of a parody yet sincere, and earned him another Oscar nomination.
It's a problem in the polls, and you're one of the most experienced guys around. You wanna jump on board, be my vice?
And things only got busier for him in 2019, starring in 3 films and a limited TV series. In Jojo Rabbit, he plays a Nazi officer in charge of a Hitler youth camp. It could have easily been an unlikable character, but Rockwell was weirdly heartfelt and he slowly became the favorite as the film progresses. He prepared by watching a lot of World War II film performances, including Marlon Brando and Ralph Fiennes, but ultimately decided to be more like Bill Murray with a German accent, and it worked. It's another classic Rockwell character. He went more grounded in Clint Eastwood's Richard Jewell, playing Watson Bryant, the lawyer defending the wrongly accused 1996 Olympic bombing suspect. It was charming, full of energy, and just sarcastic enough to keep the movie from getting too heavy at times. He had a lot more screen time in The Best of Enemies, playing KKK leader C.P. Ellis, which didn't do too well. And in 2019, he danced his way into TV with Fosse Verdon, playing legendary choreographer Bob Fosse. It was one of the most demanding roles of his career. He had to lose weight, learn to dance like Fosse, and fully embody a chain-smoking, speed-addicted genius. It earned him an Emmy nomination and reminded everyone just how deep he can go when he had to. You could say he overworked himself that year because for the next few years, he mostly only lent his voice. In 2020, he was a country troll in Trolls World Tour, then voiced Ivan the Gorilla in The One and Only Ivan, and in 2022 starred as Mr. Wolf in The Bad Guys, a fun animated heist movie. It was his biggest animated role yet. They even added one of his signature dance moves to the character and the film was a hit. It's even getting a sequel this year. Outside of animation, he was nominated for a Tony for the Broadway play American Buffalo, and he appeared in See How They Run, a murder mystery set in London's theater scene. Rockwell played an inspector paired with a rookie constable played by Saoirse Ronan. He wasn't quite sure how to play it until he rewatched The Pink Panther and leaned into a dry Peter Sellers energy, and just like that, it worked. Then came Argylle in 2024, a chaotic spy spoof that flopped hard with both critics and audiences. But even in this flop, Rockwell stood out. Multiple critics singled him out as the only one who seemed to understand the assignment. One review put it best: "At least Sam Rockwell looks like he's having fun." And even more recently, in White Lotus Season 3, he did what he's always done. Showed up out of nowhere and delivered one of the weirdest, funniest monologues of the year.
Maybe what I really want is to be one of these Asian girls.
Nobody else could have pulled it off quite like him, especially while having as much fun. And that's kind of the point. He's not trying to lead a movie. He's not trying to carry a franchise. He's trying to find characters that let him dance, surprise you, and disappear again until the next one. He said himself that fame doesn't interest him. He sees what it's like for actors like Brad Pitt or George Clooney who he hangs out with, and he's perfectly happy staying under the radar. He just wants to work with good people, keep things unpredictable, and never take himself too seriously. He's not chasing leads. He's not chasing awards. He's chasing the roles that let him do what most actors forget to do: actually have fun. Rockwell's career is a reminder that you don't have to torture yourself over acting. It can be weird, it can be fun, it can be dancing on a stage or a ping pong match with yourself. And if you say yes to enough of those roles, you don't just build a resume, you build something people remember. When an actor just wants to have fun, you never know what role he'll show up in next, only that you'll be glad he did. So there you have it, Sam Rockwell's career and all his best supporting roles. What's your favorite film of his? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe, and check out our Patreon for some cool perks. And until next time, have a good one.